Hello, everyone, and welcome to our studio. Welcome, Willie Lindo. Willie, you have a very interesting story. And let's start by saying Willie is a nice Jewish boy that was born and grew up in Jamaica,
That's
right?
correct, yes.
And can you tell us, let's start with the story of how did your family, a Jewish family, arrive in Jamaica?
Well, the ancestors have been in Jamaica for quite a while, from the 1500s actually.
This is unbelievable.
And this was the result of the Spanish Inquisition, as you know, that went on in Spain and later on in Portugal. And so eventually one of the places that we ended up was Jamaica.
Because a lot of the Jews from the Spanish Inquisition went, I guess, to Morocco. But, you don't hear about a lot that actually went into Jamaica. That's so interesting.
Well, we're all over the Caribbean, actually. Curacao, Costa Rica, Mexico.
Mexico, I know there's a
yes,
lot.
Yes, and so Dominican Republic, which was Hispaniola at one time.
Yes.
So, yeah, we were all over the place, and Jamaica was where we stayed.
Isn't that amazing? So, your ancestor, were there from the 15th century, so you're a nice Jewish boy born in Jamaica. I find it fascinating. So you grew up in Jamaica. First of all, till what age did you grow up in Jamaica?
I left Jamaica when I was 19. And I was fortunate enough to have an uncle that was living in Canada, married a Canadian, and when his wife came to Jamaica, saw the family, and decided that she'd come back and sponsor us to come here.
Nice. So tell us the life you lived in Jamaica. How was it?
Well, I grew up with, there was 8 boys in the family. I was the eldest of 8. We figured our life was pretty good. We were not wealthy. One of the few Jewish families that were not wealthy.
Most people won't believe you. You know that. I mean, I believe you,
Well,
but they always assume we're all very rich.
Well, when you're white in Jamaica,
Yeah.
you're considered to be reasonably well off.
Yeah.
And when you're Jewish, well, when you're Jewish anywhere, people always think you're rich anyways. But so we had a double strike against us. But but we never thought we had a really bad life, really. We were a wild bunch of kids, as you can imagine, with 8 boys.
8 boys.
And
8 boys, wow.
8 boys, no girls.
Wow.
So, and yeah, we did things that were really crazy in Jamaica, like we drove our parents nuts.
Yeah, well, with 8 boys, yeah, we'll drive any parent nuts.
And so, but we never really thought of it as being a bad life, in a sense.
So what school did you go to there? You went to the public school?
Yes, we went to public schools and actually ended up at a Methodist school. Each of my brothers, if you don't get a scholarship in Jamaica, then you have to pay for schooling. I said the Lord's Prayer every morning.
Oh, wow.
You had to do that. And but my my parents' religious beliefs were very strong, and always told us that, if you believe in your own religion, then there is no reason to worry about anything else, because they knew we were strong in our religion. So going to that school did not make any difference to us.
Well, it's like going back to in the beginning, before, with the Spanish Inquisition, where they were Christian by day and Jews by night.
Well, that is how the ancestors came over. They came over concealing their religious beliefs. They came over as conversos, as Catholics.
Wow.
So, and hiding our religious beliefs from the Spanish, who were then the rulers, was quite a problem for us. And there's quite a history of how we were treated badly and stuff like that until the British captured the island. Wow. I think it was 1655. And they treated us a little better, but after a while, got a little annoyed with us being so well off. And
Really?
yes, and
But didn't you just tell me you were not well off?
we were not well off. The Jews were well off.
Oh, I see what you're
The
saying.
Jewish community.
So they were ticked off with the Jewish community.
They were
being
ticked off
well
with the Jewish community, and at one point wanted to expel them from the island.
Really?
That
This is the
didn't-
history we don't hear about.
Well, that did not happen because the government stopped them from doing that because we were too vital to the island's economy.
Really?
Instead, they imposed a lot of hardships and different things on us that we had to bear.
Wow. So you went to the Christian church, Christian school.
Yes.
Which is okay. You learned
We
different values. It's
We
okay.
learned a lot of things. One
Yeah.
of the subjects was religion, which we did well in because a lot of the religious beliefs are from the Jewish beliefs.
Yes, they are from the Old Testament.
And you know, the Ten Commandments, they
Yeah.
all go from that. So
They believe a lot from the Old
That's
Testament.
right.
Yeah. So it's amazing. Well, how did your parents? I guess they grew up in Jamaica as well, but it was a different era than you did. So just really tell us just how was the life in Jamaica?
Well, we were obviously not well off and needed help from the community, which, I mean, the Jewish community helped us a lot. In Jamaica, we have there was a society called the Sunshine Circle that would help people that needed help.
Oh, no, that's
Families that needed help. They had a home that they put people in that needed help. That home really had a lot of older people in it, and I don't think they would have wanted us eight kids in there running around. So we did not end up in that home. Instead, what they did was helped us to pay the rent.
What did your parents do?
My mom basically stayed at home to look after us kids.
Yeah, true. Kids, yeah.
And my father was a life insurance salesman, actually one of the top salesmen in Jamaica.
Okay.
But my dad, I have a talk coming up
It's okay.
shortly, and he was an older person when we knew my dad. He was married later on in life.
Okay.
And at that point in time, he was retiring from being a life insurance salesman. So after that, he had different jobs that he worked at, but we were not. We were struggling in that sense. But in another sense, I think it actually kept us healthy because we were not exposed to a lot of the foods that we are here, like steaks. And we ate a lot of fruits.
Yeah, well, it's Jamaica.
And so even today, my brother and I, we play, we're soccer players.
Nice.
And we still play, but a couple of years back, we had to stop because of the knees and stuff like that. Some have hip replacements, and so we're playing ball hockey. And we're playing with our kids, and we're playing with some of the grandkids now that we have. So we're pretty healthy in that sense. And I think part of that was from the fact that we were not well off to buy the foods that have
It's
all
one,
the
it's one
stuff.
way of looking at
yeah.
things. I wanted to know. I was asking you before the show that I know that at the time of the Holocaust, there were a lot of Jews that, as we all know, were not allowed to. Were not allowed entry into certain countries, but a lot of the Caribbean welcomed them and opened their doors. Did you meet any? Did you know? Did you get affected by it?
And that's a good question because we were sheltered from the Holocaust.
Amazing.
The islands were so we don't have a lot of exposure to it, but I understand that Jamaica did take in some of the Holocaust survivors.
They did.
They took them in secret because they didn't want to get involved in the politics of it. So those people, I understand, were sent somewhere in the country to live, and in secret.
Really?
So they did take in some of the Holocaust people, but we were very sheltered. We, as a family, never knew too much about it.
It's amazing because they did, all the Caribbean, did welcome them, open their
Yes,
doors,
yes.
well, that just shows you a lot of what kind of, island, Jamaica was or still is,
We were lucky.
Yes, they're,
Yes.
yes, we were all, lucky. I mean, it's a great island that opens their door where other big countries that, very rich countries close their doors. So there is something to say about, that special island. So, okay, so you lived there I mean, you were born there, and at the age of 19, you left Jamaica. Why?
Well, we were fortunate enough to have an uncle that lived in Canada and married a Canadian.
Okay.
My uncle Aaron and Aunt Goldie, his wife, came to Canada to Jamaica to visit us, and came back telling my uncle that this family cannot stay here. They had to come to Canada,
Okay.
and so it took a few years. And it took a lot of, to get to Canada, you had to have a perfect record, no criminal record, perfect health.
I think you still do. I think until today,
A job
you can have
waiting.
a criminal record, yeah.
A job waiting, and a sponsor.
Oh, okay.
And so we had all that. But now I see everybody's coming, so I don't know how that works. But that was the criteria to come in
Okay.
those days,
Okay.
in '66.
So you were 19, you were born in Jamaica, grew up in Jamaica, and you come to Canada. It must be a little different kind of living between Jamaica and, first of all, I mean, never mind the weather, you're coming from it's like a culture shock.
It's exactly what it was. It was
Yeah.
a culture shock, right from the get-go. I mean, if you'll remember, in those days, coming out of the plane, when you land in Toronto, you're outside on the terminal, on the outside of the airport.
Right. That's right. It did come all the way out.
And this was in April. And I was
Okay.
trying to figure out how they managed to air condition the outside of this airport. So it was sort of, it was one of the things.
And it's April, which is like, nice weather already.
Well, I saw my first snowfall in that year,
Yeah.
in April, and that was really something to see that. And it was. I still enjoy the winter.
Yeah.
It's good.
I like the winters.
So yes, it was a culture shock coming here, and I mean, I was fortunate enough to. I came here on a Saturday. On Monday, my uncle took me to what was then de Havilland Aircraft
Okay.
to get a job, and it's now Bombardier,
Nice.
and worked from. I got that job. I remember sitting in the interview in Jamaica. I was earning like the equivalent of $10 a week, and the interviewer asked me, "Well, Mr. Lindo, would you accept $114?" And I'm sitting there wondering, well,
A year?
yeah. So yes, no, it was a culture. Well, I thought I was a millionaire,
Yeah.
but then. So yes, there is a big difference in.
Well, I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm listening to your first interview with a very respectable firm. Okay, so I'm sitting here thinking it's really not what you know; it's who you know. You're lucky.
I was lucky.
Yes, you were.
Because I've also been lucky in my years here because I've never been unemployed since I've been in Canada. I've always worked. Last company, 37 years at one company.
Wow.
Which I've retired from since then.
So okay? I'm listening to him, and I guess after so many years, he doesn't have a Jamaican accent.
Oh.
And I kept bugging him, and I said, "Come on, give me a Jamaican accent." But yeah, I don't want to put you on the spot.
To think of something I want to tell you.
So tell me, how did you practice really Judaism in Jamaica?
Well, we have a very beautiful shul in Jamaica. It's been there actually at one point we had over 8 shuls in Jamaica.
8 shuls, wow.
8 shuls, and we
That's
had
a lot.
We had
For a small island.
Yeah, we had over almost 3,000 Jewish people there. Now it's not that much, but we have only one left due to earthquakes and fires and stuff that happened over the years.
Okay.
We have actually the oldest shul in the Caribbean is in Curacao,
That's right.
and ours is the second. And
I've been there. I've seen that one. Yeah.
and I've been
Beautiful.
to the one in Curacao, and of course I've been to the one in Jamaica. And I got to tell you, our Jamaican shul is a lot better. It's a lot nicer. And they both have white sand on the floor.
Wow. Yeah. This is. I got to tell you, if anybody has never seen a synagogue with sand floor, you have to do it. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like, it boggles your mind when I see it. Like, it's unbelievable. It's beautiful.
And it's symbolic
I've
of
been
different
yes.
things. And you know, Jews shall multiply like sand upon the seashore, and our time in the desert.
Yeah.
But the main reason was in the olden days when we had to worship in Jamaica, we had to do it in secret.
Why?
Because of
the
Spanish rule.
Spaniards, okay.
Yeah.
But then after the
And
British?
the sand muffled the sound of the footsteps.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So that was the main reason that we did it.
Interesting. And how was it after with the British? I mean,
The British, like I said, was
They-
a little better.
you
but
didn't have to hide to be Jewish.
No, we didn't have to be hide to be
No.
Jewish, but there were restrictions, which I will talk about in my speech.
You talk.
Yeah,
We
yes.
don't have time for that.
Yes, yes.
When did the British leave Jamaica?
Well, we had independence from the British
Right.
in, I think, and I forgot the date now, I think it's 1967 or
So
66,
it's-
in the
so
60s, yeah.
So it's late. Like,
Yes, yes.
So it
But after a lot of the punitive damages were set aside, we
Right.
didn't have to do things, and we were recognized at one point and given every right to be Jamaican. Everything went okay. A lot of changes then occurred.
So really, I'm just wondering. I mean, I know you were too young to you were too young to answer that question, but maybe you remember from your stories of your parents that really, like in independent for Israel, the British were rulers in Jamaica. Did they feel anything? How was it?
No,
Do you know any of the stories?
No, I think after we sought out a lot of the bad things, we were pretty well part of the society, and actually led in the country's economy in many areas.
Okay.
Except for our family. At one point, our family was well off, but there were different factors that came into play. We owned a lot of sugarcane plants and rum factories and stuff. But
Did you live on a plantation?
no, I did not live on a plantation. Not in my time. My ancestors did.
They did.
Yes, but there were a lot of things that happened that set them back, like hurricanes that wiped them out and stuff like that.
And how was the slavery? Like, I mean, this is from the stories of the history.
If you were a slave in Jamaica, you would want to be a slave to a Jewish family because they were treated a lot better than slaves from non-Jewish families.
They remember the Egyptian
We remember, yes. But that was the trend in those days,
But they did- but
to
they-
work the plantations.
But they did own slaves.
We did have slaves, yes.
Really?
That was the trend.
So really now you go around and tell the history of the Jamaican Jews that, really lived there for many, many years since the Spanish Inquisition. And you keep telling, you want that story to be alive with your kids and your grandkids, and, we should never forget our history. We never forget.
That's
Never
correct.
forget the Holocaust. Never forget, teach your kids about, the Spanish Inquisition, because, we don't want history to repeat itself. So I'm giving you last word. What would you like to tell a viewer?
My brother and I, we keep up, and our wives keep up we try to keep up the Jewish tradition as the best we can.
Good.
As a matter of fact, you asked me if I wanted to say anything in Jamaican, and I will do that. When my brother and I play domino in the basement of our house, my wife always say, that we sound like a bunch of Jamaicans down there.
Oh boy, you sound like a real Jamaican. It was, it's such a pleasure to have you. You know, I've always learned new things, but I really learned a number of new things about the Jews in Jamaica. It's wonderful. Keep up the good work. Teach everybody so they don't forget about our history. You know, Spanish Inquisition, that where the Jews went. You know, the Holocaust. You know, we're
No problem.
learning, but we should never forget our history
No.
because God forbid if history will repeat itself. It's because, you know, we didn't learn our history. So please keep on the good work. It was great having you. I hope you enjoyed, you know, learning about the Jews in Jamaica. I thank you for joining us. I thank you, Willie. And I will say goodbye, and I will see you next week.